In this series finale, I'll be giving updates to a handful of episodes, as well as adding additional details to a couple of episodes. After that, I'll be explaining why I'm ending the series, as well as give my final thoughts on everything I've done up until this point. As you can see, metal plates have been added to the cantilever signal at the old C&O apron. While these signs have been here for nearly 3 years, part of the old C&O/CSX yard is slated to be redeveloped as an economic development center. An exact timeline for when construction could begin has not been announced. At the GTW apron, one of the handrails has been knocked off of the apron. For comparison, here's how it appeared in Episode 1. The Lapeer Industrial Railroad still operates, but I have not been fortunate enough to catch them run in over a year. So how do I know they still run if I haven't seen an engine move? Because every time I go look at the hopper cars, they're always different ones at Delta Faucet. While we're on the topic of Delta Faucet, let me better explain why they need plastic pellets. When they design new bathtubs and showers, they need a mold in order to attach the fiberglass to, and that mold is made out of plastic. That mold then allows them to mass produce that style of bathtub or shower. In September of 2023, the Michigan Department of Transportation was awarded a $20 million grant from the Federal Railroad Administration to cover the remaining cost of the bridge replacement. According to an announcement from the state of Michigan, the project's total estimated cost is $34 million. The Michigan Department of Transportation is contributing $13 million of its own money. Great Lakes Central, which leases the rail line, is contributing $750,000, with the grant covering the remainder of the cost. The project is scheduled to begin in the spring of 2025 and be completed by the end of 2027. After the new bridge is built, the existing bridge shown here, built in the late 1880s, will be demolished. Weeds, we can see another crossing signal bungalow. It is outlined in this white rectangle. North Street is our first crossing in Yale. While I still don't know the box's exact purpose, I do know that this was the location of a switch for a team track for the depot. A side track was also located here. The red dot on this map is about where the boxes are located. Speaking of the depot, at the Lyric Mall in Lapeer, in the hallway is a picture of the Yale depot from around 1910. The depot was destroyed in a derailment in 1982. In episode 4, I stated that I didn't know why the crossing was set up like this. After looking hard, I have found that this is referred to as the MDOT standard for railroad grade crossings. This standard was implemented after a long research study in 1975 to look for a cost-effective and long-lasting grade crossing material. Asphalt is flexible enough to handle the weight of road traffic, as well as the stresses applied by a passing train. The study also noted that many railroads contracted out grade crossing work, so flange rails, which these arrows point to, were added to keep asphalt out of the flangeways. A filler material could also be added to the flange lay so long as it didn't interfere with train traffic. A 2013 update to the study found out that this type of crossing works best for low traffic or non-highway crossings. The updated study also noted that many railroad maintenance departments were not fond of this type of crossing, since it takes longer to repair than timber or panel crossings. One of the more interesting parts of the standard is that it is not a law, but rather a recommendation. The Federal Railroad Administration still has full control over grade crossing enforcement. The state of Michigan had to get special permission from the FRA to conduct this type of research. All of the research's findings also had to be reported to the FRA. In 2024, the Second Street crossing was removed. In 2022, the Division Street crossing was replaced. This is the 4th Street crossing. It was paved over at some point, but I don't have a date as to when this happened. I started episode 5 with a long rant about keeping this location nondescript. After all, everything is a security issue now, and a security guard badgers people who stop alongside the trail in spite of the fact that they're outside of the fence, like I was, and technically not on DTE property. However, with online research, DTE almost seems to be proud of the fact that they found a power plant that they can convert from coal into natural gas. So with that in mind, I don't plan on keeping this place a secret anymore. But if you do anything to get the attention of the guards, climb the fence or whatnot, that's on you. I'm not taking responsibility for that. This is the Bell River plant south of St. Clair. The power plant currently has 2 units. One is scheduled to stop at the end of this year. The second one is scheduled to close at the end of 2026. Both will be replaced by natural gas burners. This coal train was on November 7th, 2021, and to the best of my knowledge, this is the most recent coal train to the power plant. Coal trains usually run only under 2 scenarios: when the sewlocks are down for their annual repairs, making ship deliveries impossible, or when electrical demand is higher than the ship delivery schedule, which usually occurs during extreme heat and extreme cold weather events. According to DTE's website, they blend Powder River coal with high heat, low sulfur coal mined from either Utah, Colorado, or British Columbia. Appalachian coal is apparently no longer used. Both locomotives have friction bearings, which means legally they cannot leave the property. It's widely believed amongst rail fans that these engines will eventually be cut up for scrap. Since the bridge was torn down, a boat ramp appears to have been built next to the old foundations. Whether these foundations stay or are torn out remains to be seen. As for the approach span, there's conflicting reports as to whether or not it will be torn out. But the fact that the benches have been removed on this part of the bridge makes me think that it does not have a bright future. Let's start off with the elephant in the room, and that is I don't have the time that I used to. If you've seen my major announcement video, then you know that 2024 has been a very busy year for me, and right now this year looks to be just as busy, if not busier. To give you an idea of how things are, this video is being uploaded over a month later than I originally intended. I was hoping to upload this on December 16th, and that obviously never happened. There's also the fact that when you're busy, things are naturally uncertain. Right now, I'm simply unable to plan things out long term, especially when things sometimes change on short notice. I would much rather end this series on a high note rather than drag it out for an unknown time period. When I made Railroad Relics, I only intended on covering historical items that were within about a 1 hour drive radius from where I live, and I've already covered all of those things, so this series has already sort of reached a natural ending point. Covering relics from across the state is something I wish I had time for, but unfortunately I don't, so this 1 hour drive radius is unfortunately as far as I can go. Moving on, I have a rule that I don't share information unless I can show where I got it from. Even though people like oral history, I avoid it since there's always the possibility that someone could say that that wasn't how they remember it or I got this, that, or the other wrong. So I always use references for my information. Unfortunately, with multiple search engines shoehorning AI into everything to inflate their stock value, researching information has become extremely difficult and tedious. Too much information now is either useless or completely irrelevant to what I'm looking for. And lastly, I'm getting tired of doing this. This series has been online for almost 3 years. My research goes back about a year and a half before that, so I've been doing this for almost 5 years now. And I'm kind of just at the point of I want to stop and move on. My life's not as easy as it was 3 years ago, or even 5 years ago. So things are different, and I just think it's time to move on. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. I made this series with little expectation that it would be successful. Growing up near an out-of-service rail line was the inspiration for this series. That inspiration would take me to some high and some low points in this journey. I'm glad you stuck around for the trip. Production hasn't been smooth. There are times when I wondered if there would ever be updates to complete an episode. I even put this series on hold once. Notice how the first few episodes had a different intro than the rest of the series, but in spite of it all, it eventually happened. Railroad Relics series has exceeded my expectations. After all, there is originally only going to be 10 episodes. I hope you have enjoyed the show. All things come to an end, it's time to move on.